It's early morning, February 15th, 2013, and an experienced cyclist is finishing up his training ride in Redondo Beach, California. He's ridden this route many times before without any danger, and so why should today be any different? Suddenly, out of nowhere, a vehicle turns in front of him, cutting him off. David Adler, who's traveling 23.4 miles an hour, slams full force into the side of the car, breaking 25 bones, puncturing both lungs, and causing a brain injury that would not be detected until it was almost too late.
I knew I couldn't go back.
Changes your
You just
life.
put it out there.
She said you've got less than a year to live.
Just dug even
Luck
deeper.
is the residue of design.
Nobody else was doing it, so why couldn't I?
That was the turning point.
Welcome to the BUCKiT podcast with Phil Keoghan. Every week I talk to mavericks, disruptors, and innovators. People who ditch the excuses, swerve off the predictable road, and epitomize what it means to tick it before you kick it.
The hardest thing for me to hear, and I can still hear it, is when she said, "You're not the man I married."
David Adler survived the horrific bike crash which nearly ended his life. But the nightmare has continued for 6 years, and at times has truly tested David's will to survive. Although David's broken bones eventually healed, a suspected internal injury began to present symptoms, creating confusion and turmoil for this father of two. But he kept it all from his wife and family. That was until the night he reached breaking point. This is a remarkable story of how resilience, determination, and a strong relationship has built a road back to recovery and ignited a burning desire to help others who are also living with traumatic brain injury. All right, I'm with Carol and David. It is June of 2019, and boom. Really appreciate you guys coming in because we're here to talk about something that I'm learning more about. I've learned more about because of you guys, which was something that happened to both of you 6 years ago. February
13th?
15.
February 15th, 2013.
2013. So more than 6 years ago, on that day, your relationship, your lives took a completely different turn.
I was finishing a ride. I was doing a training ride. I was coming home, finished all the training, riding on Catalina Boulevard, nice, easy, just
On a bicycle.
On a bicycle, on my bike, and that's all I remember.
Okay, so that's all you remember. And Carol, what do you remember?
It's very vivid. I got a phone call from a friend of ours who said, "David's been in an accident, get to the hospital right away." And I was just about to walk our daughter to school, and she was with her best friend, and I said, "Hey, you guys good to go on your own today?" So that was the last time I ever walked her to school. She just went, and I went straight to the hospital and had no idea how bad the accident was.
What
And
was
you know,
going through
he's-
your mind on the trip? Obviously, you didn't tell your daughter that there'd been an accident.
No. I really didn't think it was that bad because, you know, he's such an adventure athlete. He'd been in mountain biking accidents,
He's an
skiing
elite
accidents,
skier.
and nothing was ever that serious. So I got to the hospital. I called his brother right away. He met me there, and they wouldn't let us see him. And we were at Harbor UCLA, which is a trauma hospital, and you see a lot of just really bad accidents. So then I started getting nervous. But I'm very positive and was just sort of hopeful that this was just he was just a little banged up. And we were supposed to go away for the weekend, just the two of us, and go kayaking and things. And I remember turning to his brother saying, "Do you think I have to cancel the hotel for the weekend?"
Wow.
And then the nurse came to us and took us in that little room where they tell you bad news and started to talk to us. And as soon as he started talking about David's injuries, I was just in shock. His head had gone straight into the car. Pretty much everything was broken. His lung was punctured, and he was in the ICU. And he was in the ICU for 6 days. And so everything changed.
And I'm just trying to think of how you go from, oh, I'll see you later. You're talking to your daughter about going to school. You do this drive, and then all of a sudden you're hit with this, and you just don't know what's going to happen next.
Mm-hmm.
And your brother was there, Steve,
Brother, yeah.
and who's been amazing, right? Through all of this. What was he thinking? What was he saying? What were you saying to each other?
I really don't remember the conversation, but I just remember his presence being very comforting. And he's got a great sense of humor, and so tried to keep it light. And I think in some ways it was good not to know how long the recovery would be, to just stay in the moment and just take it day by day. It was terrifying. People were dying in the ICU while we were there, and that was really scary to know this could be the situation. Ugh, it's hard to think about.
Yeah.
Now, I haven't thought about that day
Moment
or
and
those
that day.
early moments.
Well,
Yeah.
Down in Santa Monica, where I was, our construction supervisor was in the house, and he was late. And he said, I was late. There was some accident down south. He lived down where you guys were.
Wow.
And I said, oh, what happened? He said, oh, someone got hit by a bike on their bike, and it's pretty bad. I said, what do you mean? He goes, well, they got a white tent up, so that means they've probably died. And that's what started us wondering who was that. And then very quickly, word got around that it was you, and then you called.
I didn't know that.
Wow.
And and that was the first time I found out, but not in a million years did I think it was you. Or I thought maybe it would be somebody that I know of, but not somebody that I know so closely.
Wow.
And then I don't know how long it was before I came to the hospital, but I walked in and I saw David in the state that he was in, and I got squeamish. And it was because I just couldn't believe what had happened to you. And you're in the ICU for a week. It was severe. It was bad. And I remember the determination that you had in that moment that you were going to come back, right? Like nothing was going to slow you down.
I don't remember any of this.
Well, you were adamant. Do you remember, Carol? Like adamant, I'm going to come back from this. You're going to see I'm going to be bigger and stronger and faster than I was before. That's the part that I think is so insightful about this story, is that you look at you today, physically, you are as strong as you ever were, with a few bits and pieces put in your hands and that sort of thing. But it's the part that people can't see that has been the most challenging.
Absolutely.
Since then. So when did you realize that this accident was more than broken bones, punctured lungs, metal plates, screws?
I think when he was in the rehab hospital and was getting therapy, I remember him saying, oh, today I met with a therapist who's working on executive skills because I'm an executive and I'm going to be getting back to work next week. And I was thinking, I don't think that's what it's about. It was being able to plan. A comes first. First you brush your teeth, then you do this, and so there were signs of things that, whoa, something's not right with his memory and his thinking and processing.
What was incredible was just how fast you recovered physically. You really did. I mean, can you just go through the extent of the injuries? I mentioned some of them, but just in terms of what they were doing to your hands and the broken bones. And
I think just about every finger was broken in this hand, and then my wrist and this in my right hand was broken. I still have a screw in there. So for 7-8 weeks, I couldn't use my arms. It was really awkward. So those had to heal. I had a broken femur, broken pelvis, a bunch of broken ribs, and double lung puncture. What am I missing?
well, the brain bleed is what,
And I had the brain bleed, which I didn't realize was anything. When I was in the hospital, my job, I had an easy job. I just laid there and healed. The thing that I did realize about my brain was I had horrible double vision. really bad. I couldn't, I had a TV in my room and people would, bring movies or let's watch TV. I couldn't watch TV. I couldn't read. I couldn't do anything.
Did it make you feel nauseous or?
Felt dizzy and then just really uncomfortable. It was hard to keep my eyes open and focus on anything. So that's when I said, oh, okay, my brain, something happened to my brain. And in the beginning too, I had a occupational therapist helping me with my speech because I was having a hard time speaking. So we would read kids' books together, and then I got my speech back. But the vision was what scared me a lot because I couldn't control that. All the physical therapy I had some control over. I could see it, I could move, I could watch the physical therapist say, try this, move your hands this way, or learning to walk again. I could visualize that in my head, the double vision. How does that get fixed? And eventually it did get better over time. Did a lot of therapy for that. I still get it, double vision. But that was the first clue that something happened in my head. You don't see a brain bleed. You don't feel it. Nothing hurt in my head. Everything else hurt a lot more.
You hit the worst part of the car. Like you could not have hit a worse part of the car, right? Can you explain what happened? You're going down a hill, because you found this out later.
Yeah, I was going through an intersection straight. I had a green light, and a car turned in front of me, did not yield to me, didn't see me, and I went right into the side of the car. My head went through the window and also hit the pillar at the top, or the frame. So that's...
Between the two doors.
Yeah.
Yeah, basically. And then my body, if you look at the picture of the car, you can almost see like my body imprinted on the car. I mean, you
splattered like a bug on a windscreen.
Absolutely.
And your bicycle, I saw photographs of it afterwards.
It's like in 7 pieces.
It's a carbon fiber bike, and it was just shattered. So you figure if that impact did that to your bicycle, that force, not only we know it broke all those bones, but then you hit your head in a way that, were you even aware of what it meant to have a traumatic brain injury at that point, or had you ever met anybody? Or
no, not a thing about it.
And now you're kind of an expert, you guys. I mean, both of you, which is why we're here, because I read some crazy statistics. It said something like there's 153 Americans every day who die of a traumatic brain injury, and 2 million people in the U.S. have a traumatic brain injury every year, which is a staggering number. And yet, a lot of people are not talking about what the effects are. Football has become a very big topic of conversation. You remember we had Chris Borland, who left the NFL because of his concerns of brain trauma. But this was something that happened through an accident. So take us now to this point where, Carol, you realize there's something wrong, like some damage is being done to the wiring, the brain is not functioning, David's not the same way, and David is not the same person in some respects, right? I mean, it shifted a lot.
Yeah, it definitely shifted his personality and shifted just the way he went through the day. He would become so exhausted and have to sleep in the middle of the day. And so we went back to a doctor, and the first doctor confirmed, yeah, you have a traumatic brain injury, but was sort of like, deal with it. I remember his comment saying, well, sometimes I lose my car too. And I think he's forgetting his kids' names. He's forgetting where he's going when he's riding a bike. He's forgetting where he's going when he's driving somewhere. This is more than...
And how did this manifest itself, Carol? Like, would he call you sometimes and say, I don't know where I am, or how?
Yeah, finally he started talking about it more. In the beginning, he was sort of hiding, and so I would mostly just see the emotional outbursts.
I was easily triggered. I became frustrated and punched a wall.
It just
seemed normal to me, actually.
And then when you hit the wall,
then I said that hurt. I hit the stud, which was the worst thing to do. It wasn't very smart.
Did this scare you, Carol, when you saw that? Because you said you've never seen this kind of behavior before.
Yeah. And that's when I started researching a lot. You know, you can go down a rabbit hole on the internet looking at symptoms and what to do. And I started going to conferences at UCLA about traumatic brain injury. But there isn't a lot of information readily available. And
Can I just stop and say,
yeah.
you see, what an amazing woman, right? I mean,
she is amazing.
I mean, just the idea that your instinct was, rather than lashing back, you realized there was something wrong. You knew it wasn't the David that you knew and that you love and you married.
I would have an outburst, and as soon as it was done, I was all better. It's like, oh, I got that out of my system.
So you just blew off steam.
Yeah, and she had to live with that. And there was a lasting effect on Carol where I'm like, what's the big deal? I punched the wall.
Yeah, get over it.
Basically, get over it. The challenges were when I did it a few times where I realized, it would dawn on me that that's not me. I didn't know what I used to be like, but I knew I was different. And that was scary.
Did you worry about hurting somebody at any point? Did you ever think that it could get to a point where you just were out of control and you might?
Never.
No.
It was always hurting myself. That was the frustration. I'd be frustrated with myself.
Yeah.
And I would want to hurt myself, get away from myself, but never wanted to hurt anybody else. A really heavy feeling would hit me. It almost became like the room would get tunnel vision, dark, and then I would lash out, blow up, and then I would let that off, and then a few minutes later, I was all better. I would apologize.
So my understanding, David, is that there were, with your behavior, there were these outbursts. You were being irrational at times, and then almost manic behavior at times.
Absolutely manic.
And how did that play out?
It played out in a few ways. I'd say the worst way was we had an argument, and it's hard to talk about, but I was on my way to work. We had an argument. I was on my way to work, and I just kept driving. I went past the office and drove up into the mountains. I wanted to get away from everything, including myself. And I was dressed for work, and I went on the Keoghan Ridge Trail, which is a pretty tough off-road trail, alone. I took off-road classes with your friend Harry Llewellyn.
Yeah.
So you never go alone. You have a route planned out. I didn't do that. I just drove and went through the most challenging parts of the course of the road, not caring if I hurt myself, not caring about anything. I just wanted to get away. And people were calling me. Carol was calling me. My brother was calling me to come home. I wouldn't pick up the phone. I just didn't want to be around anyone, talk to anyone.
Did you think of taking your life at that point?
When I didn't crash the truck and I got to the top, I absolutely did. And that was scary.
I just, can't imagine you getting to that place. Somebody who I know is so positive, but to be so desperate, and you must have felt so incredibly alone in that moment.
I felt alone. I felt shame for who I was becoming. I didn't know who I was. I knew I was different, absolutely. But I couldn't control it. I didn't like that feeling of being out of control. And if there was a way to, at that moment, if I, had a gun, I don't think I'd be here because of the impulsivity of just wanting to end it. But I didn't have anything available. It was scary.
Thank God.
It was a place I never want to go again. But it's actually, when you think about it, it's like going down a dark hole, just going down, down, down. I wanted it all to end.
Well, I remember getting a call from you that day, Carol, asking if I knew where David was, and then I tried calling David, and then it just went to voicemail. So you get to this point, David, it must have been a turning point. Something made you turn around, come back.
I finally picked up the phone. I'm not sure.
And who'd you call?
And I think it was my brother Steve that called. And I don't remember exactly what he said. I think he might have said, we're worried, don't do something stupid.
He needed to ground you, right, and remind you about your wife and your kids and your family.
He did all that.
I called everybody because the last thing you said to me that morning, you threw down the life insurance and said, I'm out of here. You have everything you need.
Oh, man.
Oh, yeah. I
Oh, yeah.
I did that too.
I didn't know about that part.
Yeah.
That was the last thing you did before you walked out the door.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
So, Carol, you must have been that must have been the longest day of your life.
Yeah.
I had been
And you're going to keep this from your kids too, right, Carol? I mean, there's nobody, it's not like that's something you can share with your kids. So who were you emoting to? Who were you leaning on in that moment?
I had a couple good girlfriends that know, but I hadn't really talked to many people about the symptoms and things that had been happening. But I remember opening up to them then, and I also was terrified just getting through the day, who's taking care of the kids and who's picking them up and
Right,
all those
all the
kinds
practical
of things.
things.
Yeah, the practical things.
So did you manage to convince David to call the therapist, or did the
No, the therapist called him.
Therapist called
and you
me.
saw the number come up?
And it was after I had spoken with my brother, and then I saw his name and I picked it up because I knew I needed help. At that point,
Thank God.
I knew I wasn't
Yeah.
going to. The thought of killing myself was gone, and now
You're sitting in the car somewhere up on top of a
sitting in
hill?
the car, alone, no one around me, and then the thought came over, like, crap, what did I just do? And now I'm embarrassed. I'm sad. I knew that I scared people, hurt people, and I didn't know how to come back. Like, hey, I'm home. I couldn't do that. So I went and drove down the mountain. I think he met me at like 10 p.m. and we just talked.
And what was it that he said that really helped you get to a place where you were open to getting help?
Partly it was, we talked about everything. I remember, so what? You made a mistake kind of thing. It's not,
Get over it.
Basically get over it. Your family loves you. You love them. And, you can get through this. You can get through. And he had known us for years.
Yeah.
And because of that, and he knew our relationship, he was confident that we could get through it.
So is this really like the turning point in terms of the severity of what is happening? Like, okay, we have a real issue. And where were you at that point, Carol, with understanding traumatic brain injury in your research?
Still sort of in the early stages.
Yeah.
Like, it's one thing to have information, but now what do we do with it? How do we help this?
Right.
And I confided in a friend, and she said, you know what? I just met these two guys at the DO conference who are amazing, and there's a film you need to see, and you need to meet these people. And that was Adam Pearce and Kevin Pearce, the creators of Love Your Brain. And Kevin was a snowboarder who was in a devastating accident. And so I reached out to him. She gave me his email address, and I just emailed him and explained a little bit of our story, and he sent me the film, and I just sat and cried watching it because there was so much recognition. And Kevin's accident was far more severe than what we had been through, but to see someone going through rehab,
Those manic stages, those wanting to get back out again.
Yeah.
Not accepting that there was a change.
Yeah. So it was very comforting just to know there are other people who've been through far worse than you've been through, and they're doing all right now, and they're coming back. And so that led to us watching the film as a family, and it really opened up a dialogue, and David became much more open to talking about it. And we were able to meet Kevin and Adam a couple months later, and that was incredible.
For those people
life-changing, I would say.
For those people who don't know, Crash Reel is this extraordinary film about an Olympic level snowboarder, Kevin Pearce.
So Kevin was training for the Olympics.
Yes.
Kevin was, he was one of the best in the world. And this documentary started about him going to the Olympics. It was a very positive thing. Here's Kevin going to the Olympics. And then he has a devastating crash on the half pipe.
He's something like 25 feet up in the air, and he comes down on the edge of the half pipe, right?
He just goes right down to
and
the bottom,
hits his head,
and just unconscious. And just his life, seeing his life change in an instant.
Right. And then his family rallying around him. And that was the most poignant moment in the film for me, was the intervention with the family to try to get him to recognize that he wasn't the same person that he was before the accident. He didn't have the same physical abilities. He didn't have the same balance. And that if he hit his head one more time, that was going to be it. And did you, when you were watching this film, David, were you able to recognize yourself in Kevin in that moment?
In many, many, many ways. Just even seeing the rehab he was going through. He had vision problems, and playing the same games in physical therapy for your vision, and I could relate a lot to it.
Did it give you comfort? Did it make you feel
it gave me comfort that someone else has been through this and they could make it and be all right?
Yeah.
That was a big piece of it. Seeing his resilience was inspiring.
When you saw him be really dogmatic in the film and say to his family, no, I'm going back, I'm going to snowboard, I'm going to do the things that I used to do, and you'll see, I'm going to show you, I'm going to prove it to you. Were you able to recognize that he was being irrational in that moment? Unrealistic?
I knew that he was being irrational, but I also understood why.
Right.
You want to be what you were before. There's a loss in who you are. And that's a big challenge. Your brain tells you everything's okay. And I was ready right after the accident, I think, to go skiing again. I'm fine.
Yeah.
But your brain's telling you those things.
You had not only the issues with memory, but you were also dealing with pain too, right? I mean, you were on some major pain meds for quite a while.
And that was, for me, I thought my issues with my brain, my irrational behavior, I thought that was all because of the meds. I was in a lot of pain. And
that's got to make you just feel irritable and bad-tempered.
Yeah, so that definitely made me more irritable. So the pain, and then when I was having these, outbursts of irrational behavior, I was convinced must be the pain meds, because I would take them whenever I wanted. I'm basically a pharmacy. I had more oxy than I needed. So
and this is a big problem in America, right? With these pain meds. Do you feel like you ever got to a point where you were addicted to these pain meds?
Whenever I would go in a bad mood, I would take one, because it does make you feel better. But then after, this time I wanted to basically kill myself, I had to do something. So I assumed everything was related to the pain meds, so I stopped.
And you went cold turkey stop.
I went, and I didn't tell anyone about it. And going
you didn't tell Carol?
So I didn't tell anybody. I just stopped taking.
And what happened?
I think I probably became more irritable. I don't really remember much of what happened. I remember feeling horrible, but also hopefully optimistic that this is the cure-all. Like, just stop taking the drugs and everything's gonna be better. And then it wasn't, which was actually made me sad. Like, crap, it wasn't the pain meds. What else is it?
Something else.
Yeah, and you can't. It's I could fix my broken bones. I could stop taking the pain meds because I thought that I was in control. In fact, that would fix everything if I stopped taking the pain meds.
Yeah.
And then when I realized it was something worse and I can't fix it, I don't have control over it, that was scary.
Carol, with you doing more research than watching this film, you realize that there is a community out there. I mentioned before the statistic with 2 million Americans suffer from a traumatic brain injury every year. When you realize that this affects so many people, did you then at least feel like, okay, I've identified what it is, now what do we do about it? Is that where you sort of got to?
I'm trying to remember the timeline, sort of when we started going to therapy and meditation. I don't remember if we learned more about meditation just from the research or from the film.
That was something that was really interesting in the film, wasn't it? Just to see how meditation was used as a tool or as part of the therapy.
Yeah.
And the power of meditation.
The power of it is incredible. And for the longest time, I sort of felt like, oh, that's what he needs to do for his brain injury. He should meditate.
Right.
Not
you were
realizing,
spinning, going crazy like an Energizer bunny.
And not realizing, hey, this is good for everybody. And I went to a meditation class at the spin studio, And I loved the way the teacher kept saying, just begin again. When your mind wanders off, just come back to the breath and begin again. And I feel like with everything we've gone through, there's just this pattern of begin again. Just begin again and forgive yourself for what happened and keep
Begin
meditating.
And is this
Especially
something you
just,
do
you know,
together?
Sometimes we do. Yeah.
For people who are listening and they've maybe never tried meditation, maybe people think, oh, I don't need meditation. What do I need that for? But what would you say about meditation, Carol, that is so useful for all of us, regardless of whether we've got a brain injury or just peace of mind? What is it?
It brings a sense of calm and a sense of control over yourself, that your mind and your body are connected. And just start with a couple minutes. I found it helpful to go to a class and have someone guide me through it. There's so many apps now to use to guide you, and it's life-changing.
I think one of the great things about it too is it can be implemented to help in a time of crisis, meaning if it's something you're practicing all the time when things are okay, then if something really traumatic happens in your life, you've got to go to. You don't have to go pop a pill. You can actually use that as a way to deal with stress.
And we've been together over 20 years, and I think if we hadn't had the strength of our relationship before, we used to have regular date nights and we rode our bikes together a lot, and
you're good friends. I mean, you're best friends, you know?
Yeah. And I think if we hadn't had that, we definitely would have just split up.
The hardest thing for me to hear, and I can still hear it, is when she said, "You're not the man I married." Because then I knew I was different. I mean, I knew I had changed, but to hear it from her, it's like, it was profound, scary. Because like, what does that mean? Are you gonna take off?
Did that go through your mind, David?
Absolutely. It scared me. And then I knew that I needed to do something.
You needed to show Carol that you were prepared to do something to change.
Continue to heal. And it's not easy to figure out how to heal with a brain injury. I knew that I had to, the neurologist said you need to see a psychiatrist. And so I got a psychiatrist that works, knew a lot about brain injuries. So he prescribed a mood stabilizer for me. He prescribed an antidepressant. He also gave me an alertness medicine. One of the issues with my brain injury was extreme fatigue, almost like narcolepsy. I would be at work and I would have to go hide somewhere and just close my eyes for 20 minutes.
Was this the injury or the medication?
No, this was from the injury and while I was on the medication.
I see.
So I told the psychiatrist all my symptoms. So he gave me a medicine for every symptom. So I start taking those, and it helps some, but not enough.
And you were messing up at work, right? There were things.
Yes, I was hiding at work. I mean, I would get tired. Luckily, the office was big, and I could go find a place to just close my eyes. Little tasks, like I would travel a lot for work. I would book a trip for work and look at the itinerary, and it was the wrong city, the wrong date. So.
Oh, David, it must have been so frightening for you.
It was scary. I didn't want anyone to know. That was a big piece of it.
But Carol
knew, but I didn't want anyone else to know.
When you heard that finally, Carol, what did you think? What was your immediate reaction hearing that?
Partly just anger. Like, why can't you confide in me? And you're only pushing me further away instead of leaning in. And I think as a caregiver, I started to get sort of into that role of like, I can fix you,
right?
Which isn't healthy, but so
your instinct as a mother too, right, is to fix and to
nurture and comfort. Yeah, and so not being able to comfort someone because they're hiding everything was really hard to hear. So it was a range of emotions of sadness for him, but also sadness over our relationship. Where's this going to go if we're living like this, if we're just keeping things from each other?
When did you decide you were going to allow the kids to know what was happening, and when was the time that they found out the full extent of what's been going on? Because they're now what?
19 and 16.
19 and 16.
I think it was The conversations definitely after we watched the crash reel as a family, there was more conversations about that.
This film really was a pivotal moment in your in this process of recovery, right?
It was huge. And
I remember you telling me, we had lunch together.
I think I gave you the
and
DVD.
You said, Phil, yeah, you did. You said, Phil, you got to see this film. This if you want to know what's going on with me, watch this film. And I did, because you also opened up my eyes when I saw that. I didn't really understand that world.
No, it's a tough world to be in because you don't see it.
Yeah.
If you look at someone who has a brain injury, you have no idea.
Well, this is one of the things with mental illness in general, right?
Yeah.
You don't see it.
There's so many people who are walking around who are ill, and you can't physically see it. I think one of the remarkable parts of the story is how you both reconnected with the woman who changed your life back 6 years ago. You called the driver of the accident.
I found her name on the police report, and then she lived at she was the Salvation Army Senior Center right around the corner.
What motivated you to do this, David?
Because I knew it was an accident. She didn't do it on purpose. And I put myself in her shoes, like, wow, it must have been horrible. And I wanted to say to her, I'm okay, and I'm not mad at you. It was an accident. And so I called her and said to her, hi, my name's David Adler. We met. I think you said met you a year ago. I'm Catalina.
It was a very impactful meeting.
I think I said met on Catalina and Carnelian, and I want you to know that I'm okay, and I know it was an accident. And she was like
Burst into tears.
Quiet and just burst into tears,
Oh.
and thanked me.
How old was
telling.
this woman?
I think she was 82 or 83.
So
Yeah.
she starts.
Yeah,
she starts crying.
and she thanked me a few times, and I didn't want her to have any lasting emotions from it either.
To have to live with that.
It was truly an accident.
Did you feel any sense of relief after you'd made that phone call?
I felt like
was there any closure?
I felt a relief for her. I was hoping I took a little bit of burden off her.
You guys have an extraordinary story of strength of a relationship. You've proven what a couple can go through and still stay together. I mean, you guys have been to the lowest lows. I know you've had some amazing highs together as a couple and as a family. So, I mean, part of why we wanted you here was we wanted you to share that story, because a lot of people go through big life challenges and they don't end up in a place where you are now. You're together. Also, just that we're talking about something that affects so many people, but that is not really being talked about.
People in our community have had brain injuries and hide them or don't know how to work with them.
Is it shame?
It is definitely part shame, because you look in the mirror and you know you're different and you don't know how to control it. It's a scary feeling, knowing that something inside your head is making you feel different.
It's like your hard drive is being damaged.
Yeah, like on your Mac when you get the spinning beach
Yes.
ball, that is what happens to my head. I cannot focus on anything. It's just completely out of control.
So are there times, David, where you'll be staring at your computer and you just go into that spinning ball and you're just thinking, what do I do next? I don't know what to do next.
I would get anxiety. There's times where even trying to book a business trip,
Yeah.
where that could be a trigger, just stressful, and where I would go into that spot. Or I could be, in traffic, not moving, and there, someone cuts me off, and I want to
get out.
Yeah.
Road rage.
absolutely. And I've learned to control that, partly with meds, but meditation for sure has been a big piece of me learning to control the emotions and staying present.
Yeah.
Absolutely, that's a big piece of it. And I can feel myself when I have that feeling coming on,
Yeah.
that I need to be present.
And are you more open with Carol now? Are you more open about what's
yes.
going on?
Yes, oh, absolutely.
That's good.
She knows more about me than ever.
And Carol, tell us about the Love Your Brain site, because there's a lot of great information on there. It's loveyourbrain.com?
Yep.
Yeah. Tell us about loveyourbrain.com, or the group, and and how it works, what people can do if they go there?
So there are resources for both people with brain injury and for caregivers.
It's a community, isn't it? Essentially you're saying, hey, if this affects you as a caregiver or through an injury, you can come and the door's open.
And in a short amount of time, they've impacted and helped so many people with their organization. It's amazing.
And you're on aren't you going to be on the board or something?
They just asked me to be on the board, so I started, I think, in March. So I'm on the board of directors for them. And it's exciting because they're a young, small organization, and you get to actually experience and see people benefiting right away. I've been involved with other charities and big organizations, and you're raising money, which is wonderful. And this organization, you actually see the impact right away. You see someone take a yoga class or learn to meditate or be with a group of people with brain injuries and discuss it. And it's immediate gratification.
Yeah, and comforting for you.
Very comforting, and they're small and they're going to grow. They're growing rapidly.
Carol, you got into becoming a spin teacher after this happened. And then you've given up the spin classes, right? But now you're doing something with vision boards. Can you explain what that is?
So I'm helping women make the most of their lives. And I think a lot of women who are caregivers or moms sort of put their own needs second. And so I do workshops to help them figure out what's really important to me. What are my values? What are my priorities? And make them a priority. And then they can choose to have one-on-one coaching afterwards, to hold them accountable and doing what they really want to do and living a BUCKiT lifestyle, basically.
Right, living the life that they really
want to live, based on how do they want to feel, not just what do I want to do, but how do I want to feel, who do I want to be? And it's very rewarding. It's very rewarding talking to high school girls, to retired women, and encouraging to live the life they want to live.
Be the best person they can. So you could say that's a positive thing that's come out of this for you. But David, you said a lot of people say that after a brain injury, it's the best thing that could ever have happened to them. Like their lives have changed for the better. Even people, Paul DeGelder that we spoke to, who lost limbs from a shark attack, he said, oh, this is the best thing that's ever happened to me. You're not at that place.
I'm getting to that point. But for years, I longed to be who I was before the accident. All that was a big change. And also, I believe that what I thought I was before the accident, maybe it was rose-colored. I'm sure there were challenges before the accident too, but I look back on that as easier.
But one of the things, David, that you're looking to do is become a ski instructor, right? Is that?
Oh, I got one of the things. Carol and I we love skiing. We're up in Mammoth,
and you're both very good skiers. I've been out on the
He's
slopes.
really good.
Yeah.
So we were up in Mammoth, and we were talking about, I think it was almost like talking about a vision board, almost like she said, what were some of the jobs you liked best in your life? And I said, I loved being a ski instructor when I was in Mammoth. Years ago I was. She said, you should do it again. And then I think that same week I ran into some instructors who I know up there, and I said, hey, can I do this again? They said, yeah, just apply online.
No way.
So I applied online and had my little interview, and so I will rehired as a holiday and weekend instructor if I want to in Mammoth next year.
I love that. You see, well, there's something positive. You probably would never have thought of doing that again.
No, there's a lot of positives when I think about it. That's a positive. Staying present is positive. Being able to take more risks than I used to. Even in my occupation, I was very comfortable before the accident. Job was great, life was great, and then coming out of that, I wasn't as comfortable, but I didn't want to change. It was scary.
Look, I know we opened up some wounds with you guys sitting here, but I really do think that people listening, again, I get a lot from your story. And I mean, as a friend, I'd like to say congratulations for getting through some rough territory.
Thank you.
And holding your family together and being there for your kids and being there for each other.
Thank you.
Carol, like you've been so strong. You too, David. And I love how you've opened up as a friend to me, just about what you've been going through. And
There's a lot of people going through this that don't know what to do.
People are so much stronger than they think they are. I think that was one of the biggest things. This experience has given me more confidence in our relationship in many ways, and just that we can take more risks in many ways because we've already been through the worst things. And so just try things.
Out of adversity
Stay curious.
comes strength, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
David, where you're at right now, you're still living with a lot of the same challenges, right? I mean, there's things that haven't just vanished.
No, I am absolutely living with the same challenges.
The
but
difference is what?
I'm in control of them.
Right.
That's the biggest difference. I don't react to that. I'm in control of it. And if I feel out of control, I can feel it coming on. I know how to take control of myself. If I need a timeout, I can walk away from
Carol,
a situation.
do you send him away and say, take a time out?
Yes,
She
and I did
actually
in the
does.
beginning, but in the beginning, he felt like it was a criticism that
Yeah.
I'm telling you there's something wrong with you, instead of this is just something to help.
Yeah. But
And
now
there's a big shift. Yeah, now it's just
he's more accepting.
Absolutely.
Absolutely, yeah.
So
need to be.
Yeah.
I end the podcast with a couple of questions. A road trip. And because you're together, I'm going to say that you guys are going to have to work this out as a couple.
We don't get a van. We don't get to have more
and then
people.
you could have a pick. Carol, I'll let you have the first pick since you've been such a great caregiver. So you're going on a road trip, and you're allowed to take 3 people in the car with you guys. And who would you take in the car?
Okay, well, we have to have someone funny.
Yes.
Robin Williams or
Robin Williams.
or Tina Fey. We need good music on the road. So who do you want?
Rick Rubin. Got to have
Great
really good
comedy,
music.
great music. And you have one more pick.
John Muir, because I want to go from national park to national park to national park. And without him, we'd have no national parks. And he's an amazing person who would just
Blazed a trail.
blaze a trail all alone in the middle of nowhere.
That's a great trip.
So we have to figure it out.
And now, what you'd do with your last day on Earth? If you guys knew you were going to have your last day on Earth together, what would you do?
Together?
Yeah.
Last day on Earth.
Big party. Lots of dancing.
Music.
Lots of people from our lives. I would want to
Family.
know.
Yeah, I want family, some good friends. I want to say thank you to more people who were there.
Where would you be? Up Mammoth or?
I would want to be, I know exactly where, in Mammoth, the top of Lincoln Mountain, with music, dancing, and like overlooking the town. It's my happy place.
Does that sound good, Carol? A good spot?
My happy place is more on the beach. So
We can do both. We could do both.
This is
Andy.
why you get on. You guys compromise.
Yeah.
This is why you've survived.
will you
like
join
that.
us?
Yeah, I would love to be invited. That would be great. Guys, thank you so much for coming in.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Really.
Thanks for having us.
Appreciate it.
The day after my interview with David and Carol, I got a text from David who said that he had a few more important points that he wanted to go over, so I gave him a follow-up call.
Hello.
Hey, David, it's Phil.
Well, hello, Phil. Thanks for calling me back. There were a few things that points that I wanted to get across that I just didn't get across that I think are kind of valuable from what I've experienced and learned. One of the most important things is I have a brain injury, but if I wasn't wearing a helmet, I'd be dead. And there's a lot of people out there who don't wear helmets, and especially teenagers that aren't wearing helmets, whether they're skiing, cycling, skating, or whatever it is. But during your teen years, your brain is still developing into your 20s, and anything that you're doing, hurting your head during that time, has really lasting effects. And I think as, especially as parents, that we need to be really aware of that.
Good point.
And then another thing is that I've learned is that no two brain injuries are the same. There's a wide range of injuries and causes. It's not just sports. I have recently met some people, a person who was an executive in a big company who was on a vacation and he hit his head on a door jamb and kind of bonked himself, didn't think much of it. And then he goes back to work and he started having issues focusing, becoming really tired during the day and agitated. And he went back to the doctor, and sure enough, he was diagnosed with a brain injury. And so as a society, we really need to be more aware of head injuries. A simple bump on the head, it could be much worse. And we really need to work together and be aware of symptoms. And our friends and our family, if someone bonks their head and you notice something different a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks later, it could be more than just a bonk on the head. And there are some great ways to get through it and some great strategies that we know about to help you deal with any sort of injury.
Another great point.
I guess one of the key things is that today I feel more aware. I guess you could say more normal for what I am. And I need to be very consistent in my day to stay emotionally even keeled and effective. And it's not unlike having diabetes or a heart condition, any sort of health condition where you need to stay on top of it. You need to eat healthy, meditate, exercise, sleep. All those things help you get through the day, and you just have to think about it more and just put a little more strategy into it. My iPhone has become a lifesaver. I can set reminders all the time to make sure that I get to the places I need to go, any sort of meetings or tasks that I need to do. And I didn't need those things before, but having those as a strategy has really, really been effective.
Great points. Well, we really appreciate you opening up, David, you and Carol, and I think there's a lot of takeaway here, and I appreciate the added notes that you wanted to include.
You're very welcome. Thank you, Phil.
All right, we'll see you out there, and I'm gonna remember always wear my helmet. I think of you every time I put it on.
Thank you very much.
Loveyourbrain.com.
Loveyourbrain.com.
All right, thank you, David.
Thanks, Phil. Bye.
Well, there you have it. David and Carol Adler's story. Love your brain. I hope you enjoyed today's podcast. To see more great interviews, go to philkeoghan.com and subscribe to BUCKiT with Phil Keoghan wherever you get your podcasts. Please consider rating and reviewing us. And follow BUCKiT, that's BUCKiT with an IT, on Instagram and Facebook. Also, follow me on Twitter @PhilKeoghan. See you soon.